Yo, what it is, you know what it is. It's your man, King Musa. Welcome to the Cheat Sheet, where we decode success for creators, professors, and business owners. I'm your host, King Musa, and today we'll be diving into liberal and applied art, where creativity meets practical knowledge with an exceptional leader in education. We're thrilled to have Dr. Joyce Johnston, the Associate Dean of the College of Liberal and Applied Arts at Stephen F. Austin State University, with us today. Dr. Johnston brings a wealth of experience and insight to the table, and we're eager to hear more about her journey and vision for the future of liberal and applied arts. Welcome, Dr. Johnston.
Thanks, Musa. I'm thrilled to be here. This is a lot of fun.
Yes,
so it's
ma'am.
a terrific opportunity. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Okay, I hate to ask this question, but I just got to. You're in there. So,
Right.
what would be your favorite subsection or department in the College of Liberal and Applied Arts?
All right. Well, I'm full disclosure, I'm biased. So I am a French professor that also teaches some Spanish. So my love is languages.
Yeah.
And I love the folks in that department. You mentioned that you went to their cookout yesterday.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a really fun department, languages and philosophy and linguists. So that's my favorite. I think the reason it's my favorite is I love. We always try to get students to get outside the box and
Right.
take risks because, you show up in a beginning French class
They
and
get
you
to
got
travel.
traveling too. That's
They
like my
get to
favorite.
travel.
Yeah, exactly. So now you've got the other 9 departments
Right.
in my college mad at me, and they're all wonderful, and it's great to get to work with everybody,
Yes, ma'am.
But yeah, I got a soft spot for my home department in the languages.
I'll give
so-
you more credit for that because if you see the attitudes, if you see the energy, if you see just the playfulness that those faculties and like professors have in the
Yeah.
language department, you can't you just gotta laugh. Like I sit there and I'm just
Yeah. And, oh my gosh. I have spent the past 22 years here at SFA laughing because of that. Not at, but with that department, right? Because
right.
it's just, it was always a fun place to work. And, they just, the philosophers came over and joined them a couple years ago. And
Yes, ma'am.
they're just a fun group,
Right.
so smart, so into students, so into helping out students and getting creative. Like you said, traveling and
Yes.
yeah, they're a blast.
That's a close
so
bunch.
that's the one that's near and dear to my heart.
Okay. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and get to know a little bit more about you. Can
Okay.
you introduce yourself and your role here at SFA?
Okay, so I am Joyce Johnston, and as you mentioned, I'm the associate dean of the college.
Yes, ma'am.
So I work in the dean's office in close connection with Dr. Dustin Knepp, who I hope you have on the show
Oh yeah.
in a future episode. He's tons of fun. And I guess, I'm a French professor by trade, as I mentioned. I've also taught Spanish classes
Right.
here. But I started at SFA 22 years ago, and this is the point where you're like, no way, you look so much younger than
Yes,
that, right?
ma'am.
Yeah, no, it's okay. My students don't do it either. But I started here, I guess, in 2002 and
Okay.
taught French and Spanish.
And I was
and
born then.
it was a blast. It's like so much fun. You get to just sort of talk with students
Yes,
all
ma'am.
day, and you just have to do it in another language. It's great, right?
Right.
So did that, and then have been in administration, I guess, since about in one form or another since 2015.
Right.
And it was one of those that I didn't know that I wanted to do that until the opportunity crossed my path,
Yep.
and with a hell of a lot of trepidation, I jumped in, and I've really enjoyed that role too because I get to support faculty
Right.
supporting students, and I get to support students in different ways. I get to work with the professional advisors, so it's always been all about students. So
That sounds like
Yeah.
a lot of good experience. I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
fine. It's
So
fine.
before we get into really get into the associate dean part, I want to know a little bit more about you. Where are you from? What did you do when you was like younger? Things
Yeah.
like that. All your different arts, and how did you get to this part?
How do I get to where I am today?
Yes,
Okay, gotcha.
ma'am.
Well, so my dad's from Chicago, my
Okay.
mom's from Detroit, and I was born in Chicago and lived there until I was 3, until my dad and mom decided they didn't want to live in the big city
Right.
anymore. They'd had enough of the winters and that, and we moved to Oklahoma City, where I went to elementary school and high school, and
Right.
really, I guess you had asked when we were chat about this podcast, the kind of life-changing moments, the aha times. And for me, it was when I was 6 years old in first grade,
Hmm.
and we had a woman who came in and taught us French just twice a week. I mean, it
Yeah.
was songs and colors and bonjour and, things like that. And it was just like, boom. I loved it instantly. And I think it was probably because I could talk in class and not get in trouble for it. I just
Right.
had to do it in French. And I loved it was something that neither of my parents could do. So I got to come home and be like, show off and be like, bonjour, maman, right? Just totally snotty.
I
Loved
love
every bit of
it.
it. So
Yeah.
that was sort of like, this is so outside of anything I've ever had in my family, in my
Yes,
house, that
ma'am.
I got to discover it.
Were
So
you a first gen?
of college? No, no. So my mom and dad both went to college.
Mhm.
Bachelor's degrees. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a business guy.
Right.
Um, did data processing when that was still a thing.
Yeah.
And he's adjunct at Oklahoma City University and
Yes,
everything.
ma'am.
So they both had college educations and everything. So I was not first gen. And then let's see here. Okay, so I
Did you go to
graduated.
OU?
No, I did not. Right.
Good.
I went to Trinity in San Antonio because
Okay.
I was just ready to not be too far from home, but a little far from home, and
Right.
just kind of go out there and explore. So I did my undergrad at Trinity in San Antonio. I double majored in French and Spanish.
Got you.
Had a blast, and that was, I guess, for me when I sort of realized that I love college campuses. I love doing this college thing. I
Mhm.
love that all the uncertainty of students trying to figure out who we
Yeah.
are and where we're going and how do other people fit into this. So just really loved it, and I was a resident assistant for 2 years. I guess community assistant, that's
Yeah.
the new term.
CA.
All right, at the time it was an RA,
Right.
right? So graduated college and didn't know what I was going to do.
Mhm.
So I went off for 2 months with the uh, gal that I'd been best friends with since kindergarten, and we went to France and we worked on a vineyard for a month.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was actually really hard work.
yeah.
So it was like, oh, this is great. It's like the postcard. No,
No.
it's like hard work
Yeah.
picking grapes, and yeah. So did that, and then came back to the States
Mhm.
and realized, yeah, I kind of need a job, and to make some money. And teaching junior high French and Spanish fell into my lap at my old
Right.
school.
Right.
Part time, and I enjoyed working with the 6th and 7th graders and 8th graders, but it kind of left me with
Mm.
I like doing this, but I think I want to go back to a college setting. And so after 2 years of teaching junior high French and Spanish, I went to Indiana University, Bloomington, and
Yes, ma'am.
got my master's and then PhD in French there.
Okay.
And then SFA offered me a job in 2002, and I'd interviewed a lot of places, but I came here, and really the biggest selling point, it was not the humidity.
Right.
Shocker. It was the students. I taught a demo class, and I
Yeah.
remember the students were willing to engage and take risks, and the students came up to me after
Right.
teaching this class saying merci to me. One student had come in late, and she rolls up to me and says, "Je suis really sorry that I showed up late. I enjoyed the class." And I'm like, oh, that's just so genuine. I love that.
Yes.
So, and I love the colleagues. I mean, you saw them at the barbecue
Yes,
last night.
ma'am.
Yeah. So this is where I've been ever since.
Okay.
So
We're gonna
yeah.
find out a little bit more about your journey on here at SFA. But
Cool.
before we get into that, I do want to ask, what is your passions and interests, or just your hobbies outside of the academic part?
Okay, so Moose, I'm a complete geek, and
Okay.
this is the ultimate prof answer. I like reading books. I know, isn't that, you're like, where's your wah wah? There we are. That's you're looking for the wah wah button. Yeah, gay. It is. So like
Our
this,
librarian is.
I know, I'm
Say
just
that.
the total nerd, right? But that's I like hanging, but really, I think my favorite thing to do when I'm not here is travel. You mentioned
Okay.
travel earlier. So with my family, I love to travel. My
Yes,
husband and
ma'am.
I enjoy traveling, and anything from hiking
Right.
or camping, traveling internationally.
Okay.
I go back and forth to France quite a bit, which I absolutely love.
Yes,
Love meeting different
ma'am.
people there. So for me, it's just going and exploring and checking out something new. And I
So
find that in books too there.
right, right. Are
So
you more into like novelty books and everything, or what's your style?
right. Okay. So if I'm reading stuff that I like to teach,
Right.
some of my favorite stuff to read is Haitian literature,
Okay.
like Marie Vieux Chauvet's some really good stuff. Love, Anger, Madness.
Mm.
That's super intense, but really, really great. So I like that. But then I also like guilty pleasures, like Stephen
Right.
King. Yeah, I like me some Stephen King. I also like. I'm actually teaching a book called The Plot
Okay.
in my SFAS 1101 class by Jean Hanff Korelitz. Kind of a little bit of a mystery,
Mhm.
a little bit twisted, but fun stuff. So I like suspense books and
It's a good escape.
yeah, it is.
That's
It really is. It's a total
okay.
escape. So the adventure part, right?
I
So
like it. I
yeah.
like it. Yes, ma'am. So what is your vision for the College of Liberal and Applied Arts, and what are some key initiatives that are currently being focused on?
Yeah. So, my vision, of course, is to work with the dean and work with the dean's office and
Right.
be a part of that team. And I'm really, really blessed because Dr. Knapp is great.
Mm.
Lots of enthusiasm. He's all about you have to support the faculty to
Yep.
support the students, and that all goes together. And, Dr. Weaver said in your interview with him is that if you don't really like students, you probably shouldn't be
Be
working on a
here.
college
Yeah.
campus. That's just not a fit. You've
Mhm.
got to love the students, and that's got to be your priority. So, students first. One of the initiatives that some of the things that I get to do through my job
Right.
is so, for example, today we've got one of our installments of a faculty success series, and we've
Okay.
got Doctors McIntosh and Parks that are going to talk to faculty about how to work with generative AI.
Right.
I mean, faculty are scared of that stuff too, and
Uh,
so we're going to get out there and talk about
yes.
it, and they're going to show us how it's done, hands-on stuff. So I love that I get to work with faculty. I get to
Yes,
run
ma'am.
our faculty to faculty mentoring program. So that's a blast. Get to meet the new faculty. And one of the newer things that we're doing in our college is we've moved to, all professional advising through our
Right.
advising center, but that's backed up with student faculty mentoring.
Mhm.
So you went to one of the mentoring events.
Yes, ma'am.
Mentoring is just about making connections and knowing that you've got professors out there, you've got all these resources here.
Right.
Make the most of it. Go out and make those connections. Go have a hamburger cooked by Dr. Owen Smith, right?
Yes.
And then go hang out with the language profs and stuff, right? So that's one of our new initiatives, and all
Yes,
the
ma'am.
departments in the college are initiating mentoring programs.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
to help with the faculty and student connections, which is just it's always been one of my favorite things about SFA is how much you know your professors.
Right.
Um, the whole idea of like when you leave here, you're going to need to ask for some recommendation
Yeah.
letters, and if you're like one out of 300 people that the prof had in their class,
Right.
they're probably not going to remember you,
Mhm.
So if you actually know that professor and they're writing a recommendation for you, it's going to be meaningful. They're going to
Right.
say, hey, this is what this student can do. Here's a story that backs this up. Um, so,
That's
so it goes back.
exciting.
Yeah. So it goes back to what I love. So I'm really excited about our new mentoring program.
Yes.
That's kind of, that's a lot of fun. So,
And I know one thing I can applaud the liberal and applied arts because I've interacted with a lot of the advisors and things like that. Not every college has that one-to-one advisor. Some college only has one advisor
yeah.
who's above, and they're just giving you your grades. But to see that my favorite guy is Dr. Harris, um, William Harris or Billy
Yeah.
Harris.
Billy
Yes.
Harris. Oh, he's fantastic.
English
So,
1301 teacher,
oh,
wonderful to
yeah.
really teach you how to write and everything. But just to know that, he's in the advising board and everything else like
Yeah.
that. All of that is impactful to know that not only your advisor, your professor, and then the rest of the college is there to support the students and
Okay, I
everything.
love that you say that, and thank you, because that's the idea is that there's multi levels of support,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes you got to go and you see your advisor, and they're going to give you the straight talk,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they're going to support you, but they're also going to tell you like it is, And then sometimes you need to go see those professors and everything
Yes,
too. So it's a
ma'am.
matter of we at the college are really emphasizing the resources are out there for you, the
Right.
connections are out there for you. They're with your peers, they're with your faculty, they're with your advisors, your department chairs, and my gosh, the administrative assistants in the departments,
Yeah.
we would fall apart with them,
Yeah.
without them, excuse me, right? Because they know all the students. They're the ones that are going to fix stuff for you.
Yeah.
So it's really realizing that it's a team effort.
Mm-hmm.
It really, really is.
Yes,
So,
ma'am, and I appreciate
yeah.
that. Now, you mentioned that you was a French professor
Mhm.
here. Let's talk about that journey. What was your career journey from becoming a French professor and then working your way all the way up to associate dean?
Yeah. So, I started with teaching just my French classes and Spanish classes my first year here. And
Hmm.
let me tell you, it was terrifying my first year because the chair of the department at the time was one of the French professors, and I had
Right.
been hired to teach French and Spanish, but felt way more comfortable with the French than the
Right.
Spanish. Lo and behold, my first semester, I have one French class to three Spanish classes, and I'm like, just scared every day. And I think
Yeah.
that what I learned that first year is kind of what I learned moving forward and getting into administration, is that the
Right.
solution is that um, when I was sitting there and I'm like, I don't quite know how to teach ser and estar, right? We
Right.
don't have this in French. I don't know how do I get this through to my students? The beauty of it is if I walk outside my office door,
Hmm.
I've got like 4 PhDs who have been doing this for years.
Yeah.
I go into their office and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing on this. Tell me some of the stuff that you do.
Yes.
And so that was the thing that I learned the first year, is one of the means to success is realizing when I don't know what I'm doing, which, let's face it, that happens to us every day.
Yeah.
Find that person who does. And on a college campus, you're surrounded by a bunch of folks with masters and
Yeah.
PhDs that literally are the
It could be
experts.
intimidating. Yeah.
It can be intimidating, but it's also they're here because they want to help students,
Right.
right? So go in and see them. And this is what I did. It was, and yet, yeah, these are the people that are going to judge my tenure.
Yeah.
And some people might say, oh, I don't want to ask them this because I'm supposed to know this.
Yeah.
Well, oh, come on, get over yourself.
Yeah.
So for me, it was having those supportive colleagues and going in. I'm like, how do I do this? 'Cause
Right.
I've never done this before. So that was how things started. And then, we grew in some French numbers, and I got to teach more and more French and the
Hmm.
literature, and got to do some study abroad classes, which
Yeah.
I really just, what an experience. So much fun. Um, and I started. I was actually the coordinator of the. It was at the time it was called the Gender Studies minor.
Right.
Now it's Women's and Gender Studies, um, which that kind of gave me a little bit of a taste for administration,
Okay.
because I got to work with faculty across campus, Piero Fenci from art, and
Hmm.
Jill Carrington from art, and Diane Dentiste from sociology, and Dana Cooper, and Ann Smith, and uh, just a whole bunch of people from across campus,
Yes, ma'am.
and lots of different. I probably left out some people here, but it was an opportunity that we got different folks from different fields, that we were all interested in questions related to gender and
Yeah.
identity, and it was neat to work with that faculty group to get their ideas and
Yes,
see
ma'am.
what can we do. And we put on different events like speaker series and movie nights, and it I really enjoyed working with the faculty
Okay.
to then work with faculty and students. So it was
Right.
sort of a new perspective there. And then I guess in like 2015, I was sort of half-time in the classroom, half-time administrative, doing multidisciplinary
Right.
programs. Um, and that was a lot of fun, because again, it was getting to work with faculty across campus
Hmm.
beyond just my college. And suddenly I was getting to know folks over in business and getting their
Okay.
perspective. And again, I'm the ultimate nerd. I love learning and books and stuff. So when you get to work with the business professor and see how they see something,
Right.
or a forestry professor, or a science professor, and they see a completely different
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
So I guess just bit by bit, it's sort of like your worldview continues to
It
expand.
opens, yeah.
And that's how I started. And then, I guess here I am. I've been working as an associate dean, which just means, like, if people ask me to give like your basic job description, that's a challenge. The advising center reports to me. I help with student issues.
Right.
I offer support to faculty. I'm in a lot of meetings, a lot of college initiatives.
Yes, ma'am.
And I guess I see my role as trying to help people make connections, and where there are roadblocks, roadblocks, asking myself, how can I help people get rid of them so that my faculty can focus on doing what they are awesome at, which is
Okay.
teaching. And then the students get to focus on what they're awesome at, which is learning. And part of learning is making mistakes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's where
Okay, I think
that's
I
what I
like that
enjoy.
journey. That seems a lot easier than everybody else. Well, I jumped here and I jumped here, but you kind of got to see the growth, and then little by little, you're like, okay, I
Yeah.
can see this position. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Well, and weirdly, you asked that, and I know Dr. Weaver said when you interviewed him that he was a success because people saw something in him that they didn't see in
Yes.
himself. And I'll tell you that um, the first time I applied for an administrative type position, and I
Right.
didn't get the position on campus, but I almost didn't. There was someone on campus who encouraged me, and I went home and I'm like, man, I got two little kids here. I'm tired anyway. And I'm talking with my husband here gosh, we've been married since 1997, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Talking with him, I'm like, Behringer told me should I apply for this position? And I don't know. Let's just have dinner. And he's like, now hang on a second. He's like, you're selling yourself short. You ought to think about
Yeah.
this. He's like, if you don't try, you're not going to know. And he's like,
Yeah.
you probably could be pretty good at this. So, if this is the advice, leadership podcast, I would say surround yourself with people, like me and my spouse, as someone that is going to call you out when you sell yourself short,
Right.
because he was like, no, you're not giving yourself enough credit.
Yes, ma'am.
You need to give this a shot. And so I was like, I think I probably gave him an eye roll that was audible. Like, all right, fine. So, but that's it. You always need to have that person in your life that's like, I'm not going to let you, they'll give you a kick in the pants when you
Right.
need it. So,
Right.
yeah.
So, talking about that motivation that you got from your husband, what are some challenges that you kind of face throughout your career or in your position right now? What are some challenges you face and have to overcome?
Yeah. So, I will tell you that challenges and overcoming challenges is, I think, what success is. I mean,
Mhm.
it's we're the sum of our mistakes when you
Yep.
come up with it, right? Because nobody goes through this life doing everything perfect.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I think anytime that I've been able to advance in any way, shape, or form, it's probably because I screwed it up and had to figure it out, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
this is college. Figure it out. You're
Mhm.
on your own. I got this tough test coming out. What am I going to do?
Figure it out.
Gonna have to figure it out.
And ask
You
questions.
got
Ask for help.
exactly
Yeah.
bingo, right? So, I think one of the biggest challenges I had is when I got to grad school.
Mhm.
It took my first semester to realize that what got me through to undergrad, it wasn't gonna cut it. I
Yep.
was just, and my grades my first semester showed it.
Mhm.
I made it, but I didn't make it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and it realized, all right, I got to up my game. I got to start working with other people in the program and studying with them and really making the connections with the profs, which I did. And then it came time for me to write my dissertation.
Mhm.
And I was, and I'm not saying that I'm modest or whatever, but I was not the smartest one in my
Yeah.
graduating crew, but I was the first one to finish my dissertation.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
it wasn't, and the reason it was, I think, is because I was so terrified that the first thing I did is I had my dissertation advisor. She told me, yeah, she'd serve as my advisor, and I was thrilled. I went to her office and I said, Dr. Lloyd, I don't know what I'm doing because I've never written a dissertation before. What do I do? And when I told my friends afterwards, like, Joyce, what were you even thinking? And like, this is Rosemary Lloyd. She's the top scholar on everything French, right? But that was it. And she was like, oh, okay. She goes, well, how do you work? Do you need more accountability? Do you see yourself and like, if I give you one big project, are you going to roll through that and thrive? I'm like, nope, I am not. So she's like, all right, we're going to do the chapter a month plan. And I
Right.
mean, people like my colleagues listen to this like, are you kidding me? So I had lots of little chapters in my dissertation.
Yeah.
But it was what I needed. I needed to have that accountability at the end of every month.
Mhm.
And first two went real well, came to her and she's like, this is good work. This is good work. Chapter 4 rolled around and I had some job interviews and it was, I'm sitting here trying to type and I'm like, oh, this is just garbage. And I went and told her, yeah, I'm running a little behind here. And she says, oh, okay. Well, are your job interviews over? I said, yeah, they're over. He's like, good. Get it to me Monday. I'm like,
Mm.
sure. right, I'll do that. And it was crap, Moose. I
Yeah.
mean, it was crap, but it existed, and then we revised.
Yeah.
So she
Yeah.
was the person that I needed to like get over yourself,
Mhm.
just get it done. So the first obstacle was really myself and not being able to visualize what it means to finish that dissertation and
Yes,
then define
ma'am.
it for myself and getting that person who is like, okay, yeah, just cut it out, chapter a month, get it done.
Right.
So I made it. I was like, yay, I got it. I got my PhD.
Yes.
Yay. So I guess that would be like the first obstacle. Um, and then obstacle, I don't know. I guess I've never seen a whole lot of obstacles at SFA because I feel like it's a very supportive
Yes.
environment.
Yes.
Parts of my job that are hard is sometimes I have to be probation and suspension come to me. That's
Mm.
rough. That's never where you
Yeah.
want to. That's tough.
I get it.
So that can be a challenge, but I always try to go into something saying like, look, life is about making mistakes and figuring out um you want to avoid mistakes as much as possible, but when
Yes,
you
ma'am.
do make a mistake, it's a question of how do you learn from that? When you screw up,
Right.
how do you regroup?
Yes, ma'am.
So I always try to come into that. That's part of the college process, is realizing that maybe you messed this one thing up.
Right.
Maybe you're not in the right major. Maybe you are in the wrong class. Maybe you just didn't approach that class the way you were supposed to approach that class because it's not like how you did it in high
Yeah.
school. And it's a matter of just getting real and saying, all right, I messed this up. Now, how am I going to do this different?
Yes.
So for me, that's been a lot of how I overcome obstacles. And I'll tell you, I feel like I'm super blessed because I mentioned I literally walk outside my door,
Right.
and if I need an expert on something in chemistry, I'd walk over to the STEM building and I
Yes.
see what, Dr. Michelle Harris is doing. I'm like,
Right.
hey, can you give me some advice on this? Or if I need to know something about music, well, that's the other end of campus. And so, anytime where I feel stuck, the solutions have always been when I don't know the answer, and that's
Mhm.
like literally 90% of the time, I got to think, okay, w- what seems to be the most logical thing to do
Right.
here? And where are my gaps? And who is that person that is either going to know that information or the person that I can go to and I say, I think I have a solution. I want you to poke holes in it because
Yes.
you're the one that's going to see something different than me. So not being afraid to find the person
Constructive
that knows more
criticism.
with
Yeah.
you or the person that's going to shoot holes in it so that you can then, make it better.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's the great thing about being on a college campus, I think. So,
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
So, what are some initiative programs or something to be excited for that's going on in the College of Liberal and Applied Arts?
Oh my gosh. Well, like I said, the mentoring program is really terrific. I ran into Professor Lee Payne just yesterday talking
Right.
about how I think they're going to have like pulled pork sliders for some of the government students and some sort
Oh,
of
okay.
board game night
We
coming
eating
up. And I'm
good.
like,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And yeah, and so I know they're launching some sort of an student ambassador program in
Right.
mass media and
Mhm.
communication studies. I'm like, that's going to be awesome. Actually, the first university series performance is going to be my colleagues, Gina Paul-Arena and Juan Carlos Arena, who are also
Mhm.
musicians. And they're going to be up on stage with a bunch of musicians from Latin America.
Yes,
I think
ma'am.
that's September 26th.
I think you're right.
Okay. We'll give the plug
It's
there.
on the calendar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't miss that. Like I'm really excited about
Yeah.
that. It's a big, fun concerts with all the information, and I hope all the students go out and see that because you
Mhm.
literally, your professors are literal rock stars. I mean,
Yeah.
besides me, but other folks, they're literal rock stars.
Yes.
So I'm really, that's the exciting stuff is neat events there, and I'm always excited to see one of our newer programs, the doctorate in social work.
Right.
International students coming in for that, and that's just we're unique in the state on that one, so that's a wonderful thing to look forward to.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So you gave us some advice earlier for just your transformation about failure, about mistakes and things like that. What advice would you give to students who are considering a career in liberal and applied arts?
I would say that the same advice I guess I'd give to any students. And this sounds naive, but I would say study something that you love.
Okay.
It's never a recipe of success to go into college and study something that you're a family member or someone says you need to study this because this is what you need to do for your
Mhm.
career. that's going to be a miserable 4 years if
Yeah.
you get into some sort of course of study that you just don't like or aren't good at. I mean, that's what a drag.
Yes, ma'am.
Students that are doing that, you're not going to complete because you don't like what you're doing.
Yeah.
So my first advice is find something that you love and do that. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think the jobs will come. And again, I stumbled out of my undergrad, went and worked on a vineyard, taught junior high, moved to Indiana. I've spent a year in France, and it happens.
Right.
And I would also say that for anybody major in liberal and applied arts, and I think this would go for anybody, is again making those connections
Yes.
and. Your advisors are going to help you make sure that you're on track, checking all the boxes you need to check, make sure you got those grades. But your faculty are the ones that are going to say, what can I do about a career?
Hmm.
What about grad school? How did you get here? Take advantage of those student hours, or if
Right.
people put office hours. But that's my advice: is go make those connections with those professors of yours and talk to them and open that conversation about you. And when you do, don't just sit there trying to impress them. Right? Be real.
Yes, sir.
If they're saying, there's really great jobs in translation. Okay,
Right.
so I hate translation. I'd be miserable there, right?
Yeah.
I'm just simply not going to do that, right? But talk to them about realistically, what are job prospects? What are your alumni doing? What have you seen successful students do? So that's my advice.
Yes, ma'am.
It's also individual in liberal and applied arts. You're figuring out who you are. Go talk to your profs.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you, Dr. Johnston, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us today. It has been inspiring to hear about your work in the liberal and applied arts and your vision for the future of SFA. Remember, listeners, success in any field starts with passion and a drive to keep learning. Subscribe to the Cheat Sheet and follow us on social media and stay connected. This is King Musa signing off, encouraging you to keep pursuing your passions and stay curious.